Everybody, it's me again. Um, I'm coming to you today. I've been wanting to make a video for a while. It's just been quite a journey so far. Um, it's December. It's the middle of December. The end of the year is wrapping up. And I wanted to make a video. I've been wanting to make a video for about a month. Specifically, I wanted to talk about um, suicide. I wanted to talk about suicide. Last month, in November, was the third anniversary of my brother's death from suicide. Kirk Reeves. He is a beautiful person. He was a beautiful person. Very complicated person. He was my big brother. And in November 2012, he shot himself, and out there in Portland, Oregon, where he had been living. And I wanted to talk about it. There was so much around that time of year. There's Suicide Awareness Month. There's National Suicide Survivors Day. There's all kinds of stuff going on around that time. And it was so much on my heart and on my mind to make a video. But really, at the same time, I was going through my own stuff. It's only been 3 years. And sometimes when I say that, I tell myself I should be better by now. But I've come to learn that this kind of grief is not the same, as other grief. They call it a complicated grief, and it's very appropriate. That term is very appropriate because there's so much to it. There's why. And just when I thought I came to terms with not knowing why, that I would never know exactly why. You know, that same question still it eats at you, and it can haunt you, and it overshadows a lot. So during that time, that I wanted to really make a video last month, it was all I could really do for myself. Go to work, come home, feed the cats. That was my little routine. That was all I could do, literally. I just didn't have the inner fortitude, because I was still dealing with it. I was still dealing with the memories. I was still dealing with, the questions. I'm still dealing with a lot of that. So I didn't get to make a video about it, but I really wanted to acknowledge my fellow suicide survivors. It's such a hard process, For me, I'm still, in a place where it's hard for me to really not let his death overshadow his life. My brother was more than how he died. He was more than that. My brother was a beautiful, complicated soul. I mean, even though our relationship at the time of his death was broken, my brother, he, years ago told me and my other sister, my other sister listened to me and my sister, that he didn't want nothing to do with us. He was, at one point, he didn't want nothing to do with the family, and that was painful. And for me, I'm the baby, so for me, I felt like, one day he was going to come to his senses, and we was all going to get together and hash it out and have a big laugh and some fried chicken. If you had asked me, that's really was in my mind. That's really what was going to happen. And with his suicide, that's off the table. That's a wrap. It's not going to happen. and that finality of it, it's like, you want to ask somebody, where you going? Where you going? What? You left me. What? You know. Um, Me and my brother, we were so much alike in temperament and just our personalities. Just I feel like we had so much similarities. I understand. I got to hear and I got to see some of his life over there, what it had become, and some of his disappointments and his struggles. And really, I understand in a mental way because me and my brother are very similar in the way we process things. I understand in a mental way where he was. I really do. But my heart is a whole nother story. My heart don't want to hear none of that. It don't know. My heart don't want to hear none of that. My heart wants to protest and scream and shake its little fist and do all of that. And that's what I'm left with. So in my mind, I see things, on the news, and I say, oh, what would Kirk think about that? Or I see someone doing something, and I'm like, Kirk could have done that. He could do that. And Thanksgiving, I went to my sister's house, and I'm a grand auntie. My niece has babies, and that's a whole nother trip because I still remember holding her as a baby, and she's got these two little babies, and they are so much like her. And I see my brother in them. One of them's got this quirky little sense about herself, and she's a little comedian. And I see my brother in her. I see it, and it's the funniest thing. And I'm like, why you couldn't stick around to meet them? You're missing so much. So I just really wanted to give a shout out of encouragement to all my fellow suicide survivors. Some days it gets really good. Some days you can, see them in your memory and laugh, and then other days you see them in your memories and you cry or you're pissed off. I find myself, I'm still very angry. To be honest. I understand mentally, you know, um, spiritually, yeah, I see where he was. Um, but I'm still a baby sister. At the end of the day, I'm still a baby sister. And I miss him. And, we look alike. We look alike. We look like our mom. And we look alike, and like I said, we have so much similar ways about us, that it's like the other half of me is gone, you know. The one I loved killed the one I loved, and where do you go with that? Where do you go with that? Um, it just rumbles around, you know. I think my brother had depression and anxiety disorders, and he didn't deal with it. And, I come from, black people. Let me talk about black people for a minute. I'm sure I'm going to start some mess, but mental health in black people world is not really addressed. It's not. We could do better. I mean, we could do better. And I mean, we could go through historically and culturally, we could say all kind of stuff, but basically we could do better. It's something that needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought to the forefront. It's a part of overall wellness. We need to take care of ourselves. And that does include our psyches. And I believe that we have specific challenges um, to us as a people because of our history. And I know a lot of people ain't gonna want to hear that. A lot of people ain't gonna want to hear that. But you know, my mom, very brilliant woman, very brilliant woman. You hear me? I was taught knee high at the feet of a queen. That woman went from picking cotton to graduating Harvard. Understand? So I came up under very intelligent woman. I mean, my family was very smart people. I mean, intellect was there. At the same time, okay, you know, my grandparents had been sharecroppers, and my grandfather was a pastor. So these were very realistic people, so to speak. They, you know, for all their brilliance and everything, they still were people of the land. And I remember part of the reason why my mom didn't want to hear nothing about being on a diet was because she would say stuff like, "You never know when the crop ain't gonna come in. You better eat that." And she would be serious because that was, you know, hey, you need that little extra lump because it might be a hard winter, you know. um, that was their life. So you know, when you talk about depression and you talk about, you know, feeling bad, you know, black people, you know, we've gone through it. We've gone through it, but we don't call it what it is. We don't call it what it is. We call it something else. We manifest it in other ways. And, you know, that's part of the problem. We need to call it what it is. And at the same time, too, we don't historically, culturally trust the establishment. You know, they want to, you know, give you pills and put experiments on you. And that's borne out. You know, they always experimented on black people some kind of way. And so, you know, when you see those things and you're just not going to deal with it. You're just not going to deal with it. And that hurts us. You know, one of the last conversations I had with my brother, because he did become toxic in our relationship. He became very toxic. You know, he had a lot of anger in him towards how he grew up and what he perceived as shortcomings of my mom. And, you know, I look like her. He looks like her. So I would get the brunt of a lot of stuff that he felt about our mom. And I didn't want to hear that. You know, that's my mom. You know, at what point do you take ownership of your life? You know, and like I said, my mom was a trip. She was a trip. She was a very smart woman, but she had a very sharp tongue. Hey, that woman could, she could say some stuff. Okay, but at the same time, you know, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, I told him one of our last conversations. I said, "You have to get some therapy." And he didn't want to hear that. He didn't want to hear that. And one of the people that was in his life out there in Portland she was like a mental health specialist. I forget her name. She had encouraged my brother to get help, and he didn't want to hear that. And that was the problem. That was one of the problems, you know. And it led to his suicide. You know, now that's not saying that if he had gotten help, that he would not necessarily commit suicide, because maybe he would have. Maybe that ultimately was going to be what he would do. You know, there's no way to know. There's really no way to know these things. But I think that, you know, people who are struggling deserve to give themselves a chance. They deserve to give themselves a chance. And Today there's so much things available. There's all kind of support groups online, and there's all kind of medications. It's nothing wrong. Our bodies are made of chemicals. Our bodies have so many levels of serotonin and dopamine, excuse me, and just different levels. Maybe your levels are off. Maybe it's your nutrition. It could be very practical things. You owe it to yourself to go to the ends of the earth, if necessary, to live well. To live well. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And yes, you might have so many things going against you, but you owe it to yourselves to do it, to try, to hang on. Because you know what? The darkest night does turn to day. And you have to hang on and just look for that ray of daylight. Hang on and look for that ray of daylight. And basically, if you ever loved anybody, whether or not you think they love you, whether or not you think you're ever going to see them again, if you ever loved anybody, you would not kill yourself. And I know that when you're in that space, you're not even thinking like that. You're not even able, right? But I'm saying, as a survivor, okay, this burden that I carry, and I'm going to carry it for the rest of my life in some way, shape, or form. It's like you do the crime and I'm paying. I can't even explain it. This grief haunts me. It haunts every joyous occasion. It haunts every, dark space. It's always there. It's always going to be a part of me now, and, I have to live with it until I go. And I'm 46. So if God blesses me with another 30 years, that's 30 years of carrying this around. And every so often I call myself laying it down, but it never stays there because there's never going to be an answer. So every so often it'll get back up, And I mean, it's just a constant process of, I always have to work through it. Every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every, something, and then every so often I run across somebody that's just like him. And it comes flooding right back. So that's what I'm saying. So if you love someone, you would not wish this on anyone that you loved. No, you would not wish this kind of pain, this kind of grief on anyone you loved. I would never, want anyone to suffer this. It's not fair. It's not fair, and it's just so much. It's just so much. It's really a heavy type of grieving, and it never goes away. It never goes away. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. I got some lamb chops waiting for me. I'm very hungry, and then I'm gonna come back because I want to talk about something else, a little bit more interesting. I've had some interesting developments recently in my little journey. So, peace, blessings, and hang on, for joy is coming.